My name is Brian O'Hara, B-R-I-A-N-O''H-A-R-A. I am the Minneapolis Police Chief. About 12:30 today, Minneapolis police officers received a 911 call of shots fired in this area. Minneapolis police officers responded and they were flagged down at this driveway to my left by individuals who said there was a person that was shooting from a balcony on the apartment building behind me. Officers then were able to locate two victims. One is the ex-girlfriend of the individual that was shooting, as well as her current boyfriend. Other officers responded. The police secured this driveway here. Other officers responded and eventually made their way into the building and identified the apartment. Police officers were uncertain if the individual was still in that apartment at that time. The investigation continued. Police officers learned that the two parties had a child in common, and so Minneapolis police responded to a daycare located within the 5th precinct where that child was, and the child was secured. The daycare was placed into lockdown, and the child was delivered to another family member. While the officers were here, through investigations, they were able to locate the victim and then determine that he was no longer in Minneapolis. Officers were able to make contact with the suspect via phone, and our crisis negotiators were on the phone with the individual for some time. After he left Minneapolis, obviously it appears that crimes occurred, that some tragedy has occurred outside of the city, and that occurred in western counties. And I don't have specific information as to what happened west of the city. Eventually, police officers executed a search warrant at the apartment behind me and confirmed that there were no other victims located at this apartment. It has been a busy day here in the city. This was a very taxing situation, and I know it's weighing especially heavy on the crisis negotiators that were on the phone with this individual. I know our officers did absolutely everything they could, but it appears clear that this person was homicidal and just bent on committing violence. I'm thankful that no one else was injured in this, and that our law enforcement partners in different counties within Minnesota were able to take this person into custody. And I can answer any questions regarding what happened here in Minneapolis, if there are any.
Were the negotiators able to make custody with the suspect while he was still here, or was that not until after he fled?
So when the officers initially responded, they believed he was still inside. They were not certain. They did not know and didn't initially know for sure whether or not other people were inside. Then it was clear after speaking to the victim, learning that that there was no one else inside, but still the officers eventually executed a search warrant to actually confirm that. It appears there was an altercation between these two parties prior to the shots being fired. That one party was here to get belongings from the residents, and then the altercation then led to shots being fired at the parties while they were in the driveway by the individual who was on the balcony. That being said, I do not have any information to indicate that there had been a history of domestic violence between these two individuals. However, I would remind the community that whenever folks are in a situation, that may be elevated due to heat of passion or something involving a relationship, if folks want to, they can make arrangements, and police will come and assist and stand by if it's needed when parties need to retrieve property.
With such a large police presence available, any clue on how this guy was able to flee?
We don't know for sure exactly when, but obviously the initial officers that responded were flagged down here and advised that the shooting was happening here by an individual on the balcony. So the officers did exactly what they're trained to do, which was set up a position here and get folks here out of harm's way, while other officers then went into the building, which was fairly quickly getting into the building. So even though they were in the building and identified the apartment, it just wasn't clear to them if the person was still inside or not, or if there were other potential victims in need of aid. It took a few minutes to sort those things out.
Yeah. So Chief O'Hara, thank you for your time. When you all realized that he wasn't here, can you kind of explain the process of what Minneapolis police did, because several other parties were involved?
Yeah.
Did you contact, different agencies?
Yes, there were different agencies. We identified where he was.
And how was that?
The officers were able to identify where he was. I'm not going to go further on that. There were alerts sent to counties west of Minneapolis as it was clear he was on the move. And certainly I think by that point we had established phone contact with him as well, which the negotiators were on the phone trying to do everything they can to get this person to peacefully surrender.
And he is alive in custody?
Yes. Eventually he did, but unfortunately it appears that other crimes occurred before that happened, which is tragic.
Chief, is this the victim's apartment or the suspect's permanent?
I don't have that. I don't know who's on the lease. I do know that the victim was here to retrieve property that was hers, and the suspect was inside the apartment. Yeah.
And do you know if the suspect was armed when he was brought into custody?
I don't know that.
If you don't mind, things like this, people that we've spoken to today are just kind of concerned about this area. And kind of we've talked to some that have been very emotional because they claim this area didn't used to have situations of this such. Do you mind just kind of speaking to the community in regards to ones that say, oh, Uptown, oh, Lynn Lake, I'm staying away from that area. It used to be this spot.
Yeah.
A situation like this doesn't really paint that picture.
Yeah. Well, this is an instance of domestic violence. Domestic violence happens not just in cities, but in communities big and small all across the country. Certainly there is truth to what residents are telling you, and what their lived experience has been. The city has changed over the last few years, particularly after 2020. And there are places that we are concerned about that we have an increase of street crime and street violence. But this is not an instance that is the same as that. This is not, like other forms of violence that are happening. This is domestic violence, which is different. And these two parties, obviously, this type of situation could have happened in any community.
Just to reiterate, you can't confirm the conditions of even if someone
I
was
don't.
shot here.
I don't. I'm hearing that, but I don't have official information from law enforcement about that.
Thank you.
How many shots were fired from the balcony?
I don't know exactly how many. I know we recovered shell casings on the ground in the alleyway behind the VFW here.
Roughly like half a dozen?
I don't know how many. I'm sorry.
And was the suspect making any sort of demands during this episode?
There was demands made to negotiators that they tried to work through, but that's not anything that I can disclose. Yeah.
We've heard from a resident that residents weren't notified from the complex till like 2 hours later. They got a email from the complex. I know you can't speak on behalf of the complex, but does the police department encourage or work with any big living areas of this such to train if something were to happen of this regard, or is that something you will offer or will entertain?
Yeah, the police department has done training for businesses and for, in particular, houses of worship. I can't think of offhand if there's been residences that have been affected. Although unfortunately, we have had similar instances recently. Within the last few weeks, we were at 15 East Grant Street with a similar situation where we had to evacuate residents and so on. But we have civilian professional staff that are crime prevention specialists that are available to go out and do site surveys and to assist any organization or community residents about things that can be done both to target harden, to prevent crime in general, but also what could be done in the event of emergency. We have staff that are available for that.
Could I reiterate, were any of the two victims shot at all?
The individuals here were shot at. Thank God, they were not injured. There was no one injured here. Yes.
You did say Candy, Ohio County is where you...
Yes. Well, that's one of the counties involved. I believe at least one crime happened there.
Okay.
one more question.
Good?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.